everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. I'll be your astrologer today. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Back at it with another video, and we are going to be talking about the astrology profiles. We're going to be continuing our series, and we're moving on now. It's the beginning of Aquarius season, so I figured we'd kick it off and talk all about the 11th sign of the Zodiac. Now, if you guys have been following this, you know that I take a deep look at each and every one of the 12 zodiac signs each month. We talk about the rulerships, placements in this sign, the difference between the sun, moon, rising, and planets that are kind of connected or correlated with that month's sign. So if you are a Aquarius, sun, moon, or rising, or if you have any personal planets in Aquarius, or maybe a huge emphasis on your 11th house, this is definitely a video that you're going to want to tune in for. And if you guys are wanting to learn more about your other placements in your natal chart, I encourage you to look at previous videos from this series so you can learn more about your placements. Now, I teach astrology, as many of you guys may know. I have an Astro 101 course and an Astro 201 course, beginners and intermediate astrology. I'm a Western astrologer, and if you're interested in learning astrology, I'd love to teach you. Click the links below to head over to my courses page, where you can see the offerings that I have for my courses, over 18 hours of instructions for each course. It's really fun, interactive, study at your own pace, and I think it's a good time. So maybe this inspires you guys to want to learn a little bit more about astrology. You can find all of that and more at beyondtheveiltarot.com. Please don't forget to like, comment, and share. Let me know what placements do you have in Aquarius, or do you have an emphasis in your 11th house? Do you have any planets in Aquarius, and how has that played out for you? Please consider sharing this video as well with other Aquarians. See if they like it, and make sure you tell them happy birthday. All right, so we're going to give you the full breakdown. We're going to talk about the themes revolving around the 11th sign of the Zodiac. And we will also be kind of talking about a little bit of the connection to the mythology behind Aquarius, as well as Uranus, as that's the modern day ruler for this sign. Now, every year when the sun is in Aquarius, it's generally from January 20th through February 18th. Obviously, we know that the symbol for Aquarius is the water bearer, and we're going to get into the mythology behind that in just a second. But those of you guys who have seen like the star card in tarot, you know what I'm talking about. You see the image of the person kind of stepping over and kind of crouching down and kind of pouring out the water from the jug. Now, believe it or not, this is a pretty common misconception. Even though it is the water bearer, Aquarius is actually an air sign. It is a fixed air sign, so it's a part of the fixed family, meaning it holds the energy of that particular element, in this case, air. Its ruling planet in terms of traditional rulership is Saturn, but if you guys caught my video that I did on Capricorn, you heard all about Saturn. So today we're going to be talking more so about the modern day ruler and its connection, Uranus. Now, the house that it represents is the 11th house, and this is generally associated with friendships, networks, anything in regards to goals, hopes, dreams, as well as wishes. And the colors that are associated with Aquarius are blue, turquoise, and silver. Now, for me, the gemstones that I like to use would be labradorite. I also like aquamarine as well as amethyst for this particular sign. And for those of you guys who aren't as familiar with the story of how Aquarius kind of became the symbol, or how the water bearer became the symbol for Aquarius, the mythological background is actually based on the Greek myth Ganymede. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but essentially in the Mount Olympus, the gods, Hera as well as Zeus, they needed to replace somebody who was like a servant, or somebody who was pouring elixirs and drinks from some jugs and vases. And essentially, Hera did not want to have a woman replacing this servant. She would rather it have been a man. So Zeus went looking on Earth, trying to find someone who could potentially replace this servant. And, Zeus came across Ganymede, which was basically a beautiful young prince of Troy. Zeus was captivated by his beauty, and he decided that he was going to pick him from the earth and bring him back to Mount Olympus to be a servant and took the form of an eagle and actually abducted him to serve as a cupbearer for the gods on Mount Olympus. So they were actually replacing Hebe. That was the name of the servant that actually got in trouble for like spilling things and dropping things, and Hera was demanding that she was replaced. Anyway, so this symbol, I guess, of the water bearer, it symbolizes eternal youth and obviously immortality. So immortality, excuse me, immortality, obviously. Mount Olympus though, come on. So Ganymede is thus linked with the constellation of Aquarius, and this is where he's depicted pouring water from a chalice, symbolizing the flow of knowledge, wisdom, as well as enlightenment from the heavens to humanity. And the myth also represents the idea of hospitality and sharing divine gifts. Now, what's interesting is that Zeus decided to place, obviously this symbol of the servant in the stars, primarily to keep his parents company because he was abducted and taken from his family. So they were able to kind of look up at the stars and they were able to see him and kind of honor him, knowing that he was living and serving among the gods. And he was also, like I said, gifted immortality. So it was interesting to kind of see him throughout the storyline kind of go from being immortal to being seen as somebody who was living up there. So that's the connection to Aquarius. Now, why does Uranus rule Aquarius? Well, it depends on which astrologer you talk to. Obviously, if you're a modern astrologer, you're going to work with Uranus. And if you are a traditional astrologer, Hellenistic astrologer, you might recognize more Saturn. So it really depends. But Uranus's traditional, I guess, a modern day kind of connection to Aquarius is all about innovation and change. Obviously, you guys are going to see in the title of this video that these are the rebels of the Zodiac. They do things a little bit different, and that's the direct connection to Uranus. This is a planet that's associated with sudden changes as well as innovation and revolution. And so I really feel like Uranus's kind of sense of mirroring Aquarius's fast forward, unconventional, progressive nature is super fitting for this particular sign. Aquarius is also a sign that's associated with individuality and freedom. So both Uranus and Aquarius are associated with the need for, personal freedom. It's about uniqueness and also breaking away from traditional norms. And it's also about promoting individuality and being a little bit more eccentric. Aquarius is also associated with humanitarianism. Obviously, the 11th house connection to, group causes and things that can kind of benefit the collective. And Uranus's influence here really encourages this, and it focuses on these issues aligning, with where we're going in the future. So when we think about Aquarius's reputation as the Zodiac rebel, they're also known as the humanitarian, concerned with the collective well-being as well as social justice. And obviously Uranus's association with science and technology is a big one as well, as Uranus governs technology, science, and the future. And this is where Aquarius excels, often leading to breakthroughs and advancements for the betterment of society. So it's kind of a given that the connection between Uranus and Aquarius thus symbolizes a break from the past and urging humanity towards greater enlightenment, equality, and collective progress. Now, some positive characteristics that we see with this particular sign obviously is they are innovative. That's something I love about Aquarius placements. They're always known for really forward thinking and often kind of being visionaries and being ahead of their time. But they're also known as being extremely independent. This is a really admirable quality. They value freedom and individuality, and they really have a tendency to resist conforming, right? They want to be individuals. They don't want to just kind of go along with the crowd. They like to stand out. They're incredibly intellectual as well. Obviously, this is an air sign. They're known for having a sharp mind and also have a tendency to be interested in science, tech, and abstract ideas. I find them to be very friendly. They're all about friendship and community and networking and kind of being able to come together as one. And they tend to have a pretty wide circle of friends. And even while doing so, they can still maintain personal distance. So they know how to kind of create that boundary between who they are in comparison to who they are within a group. Very eccentric, unconventional, little rebellious when it comes to their approach to life. They're often seen as quite quirky or unique. And another trait that you will notice about them, because of their association with Saturn, is they can sometimes appear emotionally aloof, a little cool, a little distant, and obviously detached from personal situations, but I consider that to be one of their strengths. Now, in terms of weaknesses, because all signs are going to have their pros and their cons, obviously, I think one of the biggest gripes that we see with Aquarius is that they're unpredictable, right? Like Uranus, you think they're going to go left and they go right. So I find that they love change a lot, and they will do this to the point where it can almost lead to like an erratic sense or an inconsistent sense of living their life, or how they are with jobs or relationships. That can be kind of a common issue. They're also a fixed sign, so similar to Taurus, Leo, and Scorpio, we are going to see that there is some stubbornness here, and that makes them resistant to change, especially when it comes to their own personal beliefs or ways of living. Yes, they can be aloof, but it's not intentional. I think it's something that they just do naturally because of that coolness with Saturn and the detachment that you see from Uranus. And it can make relationships with Aquarians sometimes challenging because it can kind of come off like they're like hot and cold. And obviously they are a bit rebellious, but I feel like they're rebels with a cause, right? They love being different, and it's important that, if they're striving to be different, that they have a sense of direction, that they're not just kind of doing this and acting out rebelliously because they would like to kind of stick out a little bit. And I have found that Aquarians also, they overthink a lot. I've seen that and observed that a lot with Aquariuses over the years. I feel like they can kind of get lost in their heads. They're a very kind of cerebral sign. And this can also lead to indecision or paralysis by analysis. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys are wondering what the difference is between an Aquarius sun, moon, or rising. This is my favorite game to play. We do this every month, and I give you guys some of my hot takes on the difference in terms of their appearance and their personalities. Obviously, having the sun in Aquarius is going to have very different traits than having your rising sign or your moon sign there. But we're going to start first with the sun sign placements and what you may see in terms of physical characteristics, mannerisms, as well as some of their emotional characteristics. Now, an Aquarius sun, we're taking the sun, which is going to be more the core identity, the ego, the vitality, the energy, the focus, and putting it in this sign. Obviously, the house that it's in is going to influence this, but right off the bat, I feel like something we see with all Aquarius placements is that there can be this kind of like androgynous or unique look. Especially when I think about the suns and the risings, but they can have distinct features like higher foreheads or unusual eye shapes. They may also choose unconventional hairstyles or clothing. Now, for a Aquarius sun, in terms of their mannerisms, they are a little bit more cool and detached. I find that this is also coming from their tendency to kind of observe rather than participate objectively, and their body language might reflect a little bit more of their independence or their aloofness. Now, emotionally, I feel like they really value connection over emotional intimacy. I think that it's more about intellectual connection than kind of being emotionally vulnerable. And sometimes it can make them seem a little distant. And these ones are also idealists at heart, and they strive for a better world. That's something that I find really is embedded in their core, and especially when it comes to their goals or even their careers in life. Now, Aquarius moons, on the other hand, we're taking the moon, which is more the private nature, the emotional connection, their kind of instinctual reactions, and we're putting it in this sign. And appearance-wise, the Aquarius moon is not going to influence, I think, the appearance as much, but it can definitely reflect more of their need for personal space, especially when it comes to like their home, their family, or their living situation. I find that Aquarius moons are rather calm. I feel like they can be very like relaxed, and they almost kind of like sometimes seem like they're in their own world. And emotionally, I feel like they need freedom. They cannot have emotional restriction, and they can be very unconventional when it comes to expressing their feelings. Maybe they prefer logic over emotion, and that leads for like a reputation of obviously being kind of cool or detached. But I feel like they're very emotionally concerned with humanitarian issues, and sometimes you see with this placement that there is something unconventional about their home, their family, or their living situation. And then with Aquarius risings, this is going to be putting the rising sign in this sign. This will impact obviously a lot in regards to their appearance, whether that's how they look or their style. And I find that they tend to opt for something that's either a little bit more eccentric or something that's a little bit more modern. Like they're usually pretty up to date with like modern fashions and things that can be more so minimalist, but solid colors, things that might be more slate or gray is pretty common. And obviously they can have a more memorable look. Their features generally stand out pretty significantly, and I find that they are either tall or they have like a longer face, and their eyes can be kind of striking or unusual. And with their mannerisms, something that I find is that they have this aura of being very unique, right? You'll see the quirks that kind of come out, the ways that they do things, how they kind of carry themselves. And I find that they're generally pretty open and very friendly, even if they can kind of keep a little bit of like a detached aloofness about them. I find that this is probably a little bit friendlier than some of the other Aquarius placements. I also feel like they're very curious about the human condition, and even if they don't dive deep into their own emotions, they generally will be very social and kind of connected with others. So the key difference between the sun, the moon, and the rising is that the sun in Aquarius is more going to show you Aquarius through their core identity, and it's going to be about how they see themselves in terms of individualism and innovation, versus the Aquarius moon, which is going to be dealing more with their emotional responses and their inner world. It's about nurturing and helping nurture the collective. I think it can be more detached in the emotional landscape, and they have a tendency to focus more on logic or ideals. And then the Aquarius rising, the first impression, obviously that rising sign is kind of the mask they wear to the world, but I feel like it's going to give off this air of being a little bit more eccentric and friendly and a little bit more socially active. Now, Aquarius rising, something else that I have noticed about them is that, I always joke, but it's like, have you guys ever seen some of like those, like the UFO files or whatever, like any of those like ancient aliens or anything like that, where they're always talking about how some of those like alien hybrids look like very bold and like wider eyes, and they have like this kind of like flatline smile, and like these broad like shoulders and cheekbones. I find that there is something very modern like with most of the Aquarius risings that I've seen. So you can kind of see that Saturn side to them, which can be a little stern and cool, but you can also see something that's like very unique in terms of their facial features. That for me is always a dead giveaway for the Aquarius risings. Now, in terms of the body parts ruled by Aquarius, remember that the modern day ruler is Uranus, the traditional is Saturn, so you're going to see some mixed stuff in terms of the body systems here. But specifically, Aquarius is linked to the ankles, the calves, the circulatory system, particularly within the lower legs. And it's interesting, as we kind of go through the 12 systems, we're also going through the 12 signs. And so we kind of start at Aries, which is the head, and we have worked our way down sign by sign until we have gotten to kind of the calves and the ankles. Obviously, next month, Pisces is going to be the feet. So it's kind of cool when you think about how it goes in order. Health issues for Aquarius placements, maybe Aquarius on the 6th house cusp. So if you happen to be a Virgo rising, this would apply a little bit more to you. Obviously, circulation issues is something that I see with Aquarius placements. Things like varicose veins, poor circulation, or issues with blood flow in the legs is pretty common. I also see lots of like ankle and calf issues, whether this is like strains, sprains, fractures, muscle cramps in the lower legs due to their active and sometimes erratic lifestyle. And Aquarius does have a connection to the nervous system because of its association with electricity in the nervous system. So they may be prone to stress-related ailments like insomnia and nervous tension. And sometimes when you have Aquarius or Uranus kind of connected to the 6th house, because of the connection to Uranus, there might be sudden or unexpected health issues that can kind of come up in these areas for some of these people. So some tips that I would have if you have, Uranus in the 6th house, if you've got maybe North Node Uranus in the 6th house, Aquarius on the cusp, anything like that, would definitely be improving circulation and, engaging in regular physical activity that promotes good circulation. Cycling and swimming seem to be like really good methods for that. as well as any lower leg care. So strengthening your ankles and your calves with exercises, and be mindful when walking or running to avoid injuries. I feel like all air signs benefit from focusing on mental health, and since Aquarius can kind of get caught up in their thoughts a little bit, practices like mindfulness and meditation can really help manage stress and prevent burnout. Hydration is important for the circulatory system. I think this is crucial for Aquarius, and that's something that I would really focus on. And I feel like, given the potential for sudden health changes, routine checkups are really important. Regular health screenings, all of these things can be really good for Aquarius in the 6th. And obviously social wellness as well, because Aquarius really thrives in social environments. So maintaining a good network of friends can really contribute to positive mental and emotional health. Now, in astrology, Uranus is the modern day association with this sign. And so we talked a little bit about how it's about what's unconventional, what's different, what's futuristic. But not often do we hear that it's really about innovation and change, and that change is necessary. And so this is why it's interesting, so contrast to the traditional ruler Saturn, because one wants to kind of maintain the old ways, and the other wants to say, to heck with that, we're going to kind of revolutionize everything and throw everything out the window. But I think that this can be a planetary, energy, or even a sign that can be wonderful for sudden changes, innovation, and revolution, as well as individuality and freedom. Anything that's going to be kind of connected also to, astrology. I mean, I think about the connection with Uranus and astrology, and as well as, the Aquarian energy that's kind of tied into that whole system. Now, in terms of planetary dignities, because we're dealing with a sign that has a traditional ruler and a modern ruler, the rules are a little different here. If you're following the modern system, then you're going to consider Uranus to be the primary ruler of Aquarius, really emphasizing the innovation, rebellion, and individuality of the sign. But the traditional ruler is Saturn, and actually before Uranus was discovered, Saturn was considered the ruler of Aquarius, and it was really bringing more structure, discipline, and sometimes restrictive energy to the sign's expression. But a lot of us modern day astrologers really kind of feel like that goes against some of the themes of really Aquarius kind of coming after Capricorn and being able to kind of represent the future of where we're going. So you can look at either one of these particular planets in connection to this sign. When we look at exaltations, obviously there's no universally agreed upon, like ruler. So we don't really have an exaltation in Aquarius. Some astrologers might say Uranus is exalted here given its rulership, but traditionally there is not one. What there is, though, is there is a detriment for Aquarius. So the sun is considered to struggle to shine its individual expression when it's in Aquarius, because this is much more of a community-oriented sign, and it's less about personal glory. So we see the sun generally, in its home sign, in its domicile in Leo. So when it's in Aquarius, it's considered to be in its detriment. And it just means that it's harder for it to be able to function in this particular sign. There's no traditional fall. Some modern astrologers argue that Saturn could be seen as diminished here, and that there's a clash between Saturn's kind of conservative side and Aquarius's tendency to be more progressive. I personally don't see it that way. I can see the benefit of Saturn being in Capricorn for specific things and also in Aquarius for specific things. So I generally won't consider there to be a fall when dealing with this sign. Now, when we think about the planets that are in Aquarius, so obviously you guys have heard me say in previous episodes that when you take a planet is going to have specific kind of lessons that are going to come from that planet. Think of the planet almost as like a teacher. And you put the planet in a sign, and it's going to project the themes revolving around that sign. So if, Aquarius is going to be, associated with, history or, maybe economics or anything in regards to future predicting, what planet you put in there, it's going to kind of show you some of those topics. So I want to talk to you guys about the planets in the sign of Aquarius, how that might manifest for you guys. Obviously, it might be a little different because you have to take into consideration the houses and the aspects. But just to give you some food for thought on what the meaning might be of planets in this particular sign. Now, we talked a little bit about the sun and the ego kind of being tied up in Aquarius, and obviously that can have its pros and its cons. But essentially with the sun being in Aquarius, this is going to signify a personality that is incredibly unique, very independent, and generally ahead of its time. These individuals are often seen as visionaries, and this is because they're embracing individuality and innovation, and they really value freedom. I feel like they are humanitarians at heart, and they like to engage in activities that are going to be benefiting the masses. So as an example, someone with their sun in Aquarius might teach, might be a tech entrepreneur who focuses on developing solutions for social good, or an app, to connect volunteers with community projects. Part of their goals are wrapped up in how we can kind of create these networks. Versus a moon in Aquarius, we're going to see the moon really indicating more of an emotional nature that's going to be detached and intellectual at the same time. So these individuals might find emotional fulfillment through friendships rather than traditional relationships. They may also need a sense of freedom, and emotionally can be quite unconventional in how they express or they process their feelings. Their feelings can be kind of erratic sometimes. And a person with an Aquarius moon might be emotionally stimulated by participating in a organized group activity for a cause, maybe feeling most at home in a community like-minded kind of setting, or a communal living situation, or living with people who they feel like have similar kind of lifestyles. Now, Mercury in Aquarius, this is probably one of my favorite placements for Mercury. I personally, I like to see Mercury in Gemini or Virgo, but I like to see Mercury in Aquarius because to me, it almost seems exalted. And I know you can't just like make up those rules, but from what I've observed, there is a even higher level of awareness and like data information and like comprehension with Mercury in this sign. So if you have Mercury in Aquarius, this is obviously the planet of communication, travel, learning, and it means that your communication is unconventional, right? Maybe your thoughts are often super original, very eccentric. Mercury in Aquarius people, I think they think outside of the box. They have very progressive ideas, and they communicate in ways that inspire change or innovation. Probably love a good conspiracy theory too. I've seen that a lot for Mercury in Aquarius, or you're into like UFO or things like that. And as an example, an individual here with this placement might be known for their ability to articulate complex or, technological concepts in an accessible way. Or they'll be known for like their quirky kind of like meme-filled social media presence. That's another common thing that I see with Mercury in Aquarius. Now, Venus in Aquarius, this is a fun placement too. We've got the planet of love and relationships being placed in this sign. So there's going to be an emphasis on love, but more in a platonic way. It might be love amongst friendships, or love of freedom, love of equality. Venus in Aquarius really values mental connection and often seeks unconventional or non-traditional relationship structures. I've seen people with this placement that, opt to, not commit in a formal way. Maybe they'll have a companion or a life partner, but they don't legally get married. I've seen some people who have this placement that are polyamorous. I've seen people who have this placement that are gay, just something unconventional, something different, or somebody who seeks friendship prior to romantic relationships. There is this process of building like a solid friendship and getting to know each other first before it kind of blossoms and turns into like a romantic thing. So as an example, someone with Venus in Aquarius, they might be in an open relationship with someone, or they might fall in love with someone through shared intellectual, pursuits rather than traditional romance, and basing everything kind of like off of chemistry. Now, Mars in Aquarius, this is an interesting placement. We've got the planet of passion, drive, and desire in Aquarius. So here, he drives through innovation, being rebellious, and also sometimes social activism. So these individuals might fight for causes. They use their energy in a unique or unexpected way, often with a focus on group dynamics rather than personal gain. I've personally had a number of clients who are drummers, actually, who have Mars in Aquarius, which is kind of interesting. You think about somebody who is keeping the beat and the momentum for a group, right? Very Mars in Aquarius, Mars in the 11th house. I've also seen a number of people who like to participate in group competitive sports have Mars in Aquarius, playing for famous like football teams or basketball teams. That's been a common thing as well. I would say as an example, outside of that, I have seen a lot of people who also have these placements that are really focused on protesting for change, right? Aquarius is that kind of connection to protest. That could be like, anything in regards to using social media to organize and mobilize people, to just showing a fierce dedication to their ideas. Now, Jupiter in Aquarius is taking the placement of growth and abundance and travel, philosophy, and wisdom, putting it in this sign. I like this placement. I feel like this placement expands their minds towards progressive ideas. They are also very involved in social justice and humanitarianism, especially under the guise of like laws and or philosophy about the collective, or even about politics. That can be something that you could see a lot with Jupiter in Aquarius. I feel like this is somebody who, if they have this placement, it can bring growth and luck through networks, especially technology and community involvement. They may have a lot of popularity online, right? Jupiter in Aquarius, or somebody who's got a large audience or a large following. And this individual also might find success in developing education programs that use technology, or maybe reach underprivileged communities globally. Now, if you have Saturn in Aquarius, obviously you have got Saturn in one of its ruling signs. Some of you guys just recently completed your Saturn's return, so congrats on that. So the meaning here is essentially that Saturn is challenging you to structure your more rebellious or innovative impulses. So it's like, okay, we can take that into consideration, but we're not going to kind of like throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're going to learn to be a little bit more patient and reserved and mature. So it could be about dealing with limitations in social settings, learning to balance personal or professional freedom with responsibility, right? And this is also about what is your karma, what is your responsibility when it comes to the collective. So someone with this placement might work in a field that combines technology, maybe with social policy. Maybe it's about facing challenges and implementing change, but ultimately creating lasting systemic improvements. Now, if you have Uranus in Aquarius, you can't be much younger than me. But essentially, this is a very powerful placement. I'm trying to think of when we had this. It had to be somewhere kind of getting into the 2000s, I would say. I'll have to go and look at that. But basically, this is a placement where Uranus is at home if you follow the modern day kind of rulership. So it's a powerful placement. It amplifies Aquarius's natural traits, especially anything connection to innovation and individuality or some kind of revolutionary thinking. It can also signify a generation focused on radical change or technological breakthroughs. So, for example, an individual or a group with this placement can be at the forefront of movements like the internet revolution and pushing boundaries in how we connect and how we work. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. All right, so what about Neptune in Aquarius? So if we have Neptune in Aquarius, here, obviously, this is a planet that kind of blurs the lines a little bit. So, having Neptune, which is about idealism and spirituality and spiritual movements, kind of connecting to Aquarius. So it can be about mass movements, mass artistic expressions, humanitarian causes that are either visionary or utopian. An example here, I think, for Neptune in Aquarius would be like an artist that creates work that explores themes of universal brotherhood, or might be involved in movements that blend spirituality with technology. And then more so recently, which we have kind of been in and out of in this last year or so, we've got Pluto in Aquarius. So, many of us are still kind of yet to see what this is going to bring us, but Pluto in this sign is symbolic of transformation through collective efforts. So this could be technology, this could be radical change for the future. And it can signify, deep, possibly disruptive changes in social structures and how we understand humanity, changes in revolutions when it comes to power as well. So as an example, for somebody who has Pluto in Aquarius, this might be a person who might be a part of lead initiatives that fundamentally change how we think about democracy or privacy, human rights in the digital age, especially that kind of connection to tech, and focusing on empowerment through information. Now, if you have your North or your South node in Aquarius, obviously you want to take into consideration, what house is it in? That's where it's going to show you you're doing most of your work. And also you want to look at Uranus or Saturn as the rulership. This is still significant. It may not necessarily be a planetary placement, but it is going to be talking about aligning with some of the themes revolving around Aquarius. So let's say your North node is in Aquarius, right? So this basically means that your soul's growth or karmic path is aligned with, in this lifetime, Aquarian values. So you're going to be kind of tasked with embracing your individuality, your innovation, learning to form some kind of community. And you're encouraged to move away from conforming or traditional paths towards, a life of uniqueness, social activism, building networks, and anything that's going to kind of support collective goals. So in this lifetime, it's all about learning your own value and others also. And this is also about freedom, embracing technology, fostering an inclusive kind of approach to life. So as an example, somebody with like a North Node Aquarius, they might find that their life's purpose through social activism. It could also be like funding a tech startup aimed at solving social issues, or by becoming a key figure of a movement for social change, or learning to balance personal freedom with collective responsibility. Versus if you have your South Node in Aquarius, it means that you've been there, done that in previous lifetimes. You've come in with your North Node in Leo. So if your South Node is in Aquarius, then there is this tendency to come into this lifetime with a natural inclination towards independence, innovation, and detachment from personal, emotional, kind of engagement. And the challenge here is not to fall back into old patterns of being too aloof or relying solely on intellectual connections, or maybe avoiding deep personal bonds. This placement suggests that you're supposed to be balancing freedom with intimacy and community involvement with personal relationships. So a little different. You guys can go and listen to the North Node or the Leo video, but basically means that now is your time to really invest in personal relationships and focusing on deepening emotional connections and integrating your personal life, and not getting too overly consumed with what's going on with friends or what's going on socially or with the collective. Now we know that Aquarius has an association with the 11th house. But themes of that house, just beyond, it's friendships and it's social networks, it's really about how we build connections to other people, how we develop community, what those social circles or networks look like. It can be about groups as well as organizations, so involvements with things like clubs or any other collective action where we kind of have shared goals. This can also be about long-term hopes and dreams, what we aim to achieve in life, especially in terms of personal fulfillment through connection with other people. And it's also about innovation and technology, so like the future, embracing new tech ideas. And also, I think a lot of this is about learning to be more objective and taking a step back from personal involvement and like seeing the bigger picture. And then finally, this is what's unconventional. So that association with the 11th house and Uranus is like, okay, how can we break free from something traditional and find a new innovative way of living or solving problems? So a lot of it's like kind of getting outside of the box. Now, obviously, planets in the 11th house, even if it's in a different sign, is still going to have a little bit of that Aquarian flair. Right? So if you have planets in the 11th house, definitely listen for them so you can kind of understand and connect the dots as to what that might mean for your chart. Do take into consideration the sign, but thinking just kind of from the top, like the sun in Aquarius, obviously this is where the ego and the identity, similar to a sun in Aquarius, is tied to social groups and community. And here, this is about shining, right, in group settings. And these people are generally natural born leaders, they're influencers in their social circle, they can be involved in politics, and there can be a sense of purpose linked to what they're contributing to society. So, you know, someone with the sun in the 11th, they might be known for hosting community parties or events, or leading a club, or you know, being in a place where they not only gain personal recognition, but also fulfillment because of what they contribute to that kind of club or society. Now, versus the moon in the 11th house is going to have a little bit of like a different meaning, because the moon is emotional security and fulfillment from friendships and social networks. So these individuals might be very attuned emotionally to what people need, right? What others need. And they might find comfort in collective experiences rather than personal one-on-one ones, right? They like the group coming together. They like the parties. They feel like friends could be family. And I feel like a person with the moon in the 11th house, they feel most at home when they're organizing, you know, group therapy sessions or community support groups, or where they can nurture and be nurtured by their community. These are the people who feel like, you know, sometimes family are not the ones that we're kind of born into. It's the friends that we make and the people who kind of come into our lives that feel like family. Now, when we have Mercury in the 11th house, this means that communication is best expressed in groups or group settings through networks. So these people might excel in roles where they can share ideas, and you know, for me, this would be like think tanks, social media, community meetings, anywhere where intellectual contributions can help share group dynamics. And an example here would be like an individual who becomes like a popular blogger, or maybe like a podcaster, and using their platform to discuss social issues and bring people together. Versus Venus in the 11th house is going to kind of have a similar vibe to Venus in Aquarius. These people find pleasure, right? Beauty, love, friendships in the 11th house. So love and social life are very intertwined here. Now, there's like a charm when it comes to social settings and relationships. You know, relationships may start within group or through friends. And this placement also values equality and friendship in love. So an example for someone who has Venus in the 11th house might be someone who might meet their romantic partner through a shared interest group or fall in love with a friend. This could also emphasize, you know, a relationship that also enhances their social circle, or maybe they were set up by friends, or they meet somebody at a party. That's kind of like a common theme that I see with Venus in the 11th house. Love to socialize, love to have a good time. All right, then we have Mars on the other hand. So the god of conflict, you know, kind of assertiveness, battling, being put in the 11th house. And here I feel like the energy and the assertiveness is channeled into group activities or social causes. So these individuals have a tendency to be very vocal and very active when it comes to organizing or leading movements for change. And or they may be very competitive within social or team settings. Pretty common. These also tend to be people who, they like to party, little party animals. And I feel like an example for here would be like a person with Mars in the 11th house might be somebody who is the driving force behind a local environmental campaign. Maybe they plan a sports team. They can also use their energy to motivate others, to work with others, and to inspire other people, you know, to kind of contribute to group projects. Now, Jupiter in the 11th house, we're taking the planet of good fortune and expansion, and we're seeing it through the 11th house lens of social networks, friends, and involvement in larger group or group causes. So these individuals have a wide variety of friends from different cultures, different backgrounds, different places. And I find that their luck increases based off of their social connection. So it's all about who they know. They may have friends in high places, or they may have people who are in high positions, or maybe people who are just incredibly gifted when it comes to just the sheer amount of social connections that they have. So as an example, you know, Jupiter in the 11th house, you might see someone who might experience growth by being a part of like an international organization, or having friends who can introduce them to opportunities they wouldn't necessarily have found alone. These are ones who also like to party, they like to socialize, they like to have a good time. I have found that good food, good wine, good entertainment is generally Jupiter in the 11th house. Now, if you have Saturn in the 11th house, I would say for Saturn and Uranus in the 11th house, I would consider them, depending on their aspects and their sign, I would consider this to be pretty strong placements, to be honest with you. So thinking back to Saturn's traditional association with Aquarius, I feel like Saturn in the 11th house is more about challenging, situations coming up when it comes to forming or maintaining friendships, or a sense of isolation within groups, right? But remember that, these challenges lead to learning how to build enduring, meaningful connections. And this is also about contributing to a society in a structured way. Maybe Saturn in the 11th house is, a late bloomer. It takes them a little bit longer to have some of the, experiences that you have when you're like a teenager. Maybe they feel like there is some kind of social rejection, or it's hard to find their tribe or to fit in with certain people or places. But ultimately it ends up being something that you master and you figure out who your people are, what your goals are, what your job is when it comes to contributing to society. So as an example, Saturn in the 11th house, this might be an individual who might start a professional network that initially struggles to take off, but eventually it becomes a respected community for career development, right? I've seen that a lot actually with Saturn in the 11th house. Versus Uranus in the 11th house, this is where we're taking the planet Uranus and putting it in a house where it performs pretty well, generally, depending on the sign. And this basically means that they're going to take an unconventional approach to friendships and social networks. There is a desire for freedom within groups, and they may be involved in innovative or revolutionary type of things or events or groups or collaborations. So someone with this placement might be a part of a community that's focused on cutting edge technology or social reform, or maybe bringing fresh, unexpected ideas to the table. Versus Neptune in the 11th house, okay, with this theme of blurring and sometimes creating mystical situations. Here I feel like there is this sense of blurring the boundaries in social friendships. It can lead to idealistic, sometimes confusing group dynamics. And it's also about finding spiritual or artistic communities where they can dream and feel inspired. Now, an example here might be an artist, that might thrive in a collective where creativity is shared, or someone might be deeply involved in spiritual or charitable organizations, or they've got, mystical, magical friends, or there is some kind of connection that they have to spiritual or sometimes even religious groups. Versus Pluto in the 11th house, so we're taking the planet of transformation and we are putting it into the 11th house. And this means that there's transformative experiences through groups, right? Now, this might be where one encounters power struggles and profound changes in social circles. I have found that this placement leads to intense involvement in movements or causes that fundamentally change one's life or society. So as an example, Pluto in the 11th house, might be a lead or a key figure in a grassroots movement that challenges societal norms, or they might experience significant personal transformation through some sort of, dynamics in regards to a group or a project that they might be working on with other people. Sometimes some power struggles or challenges also when it comes up for some of their friendships. Now, before I let you guys go, the last thing that I do want to go over is I do want to talk a little bit about Uranus through the houses, because you're going to see a striking difference between Uranus through the houses and Saturn through the houses. I do feel like your natal Uranus placement is going to tell you a lot about where you break out of the box, right? Where you are willing to start thinking about the future, where you are more focused on kind of doing things differently, or maybe uprooting yourself from, tendencies to kind of want to stay fixed and kind of secure in an area. So this is going to be the house in your chart where there can always be a little bit of a curveball or something unexpected or kind of different when it comes to that area of your life. Well, if you've got a planet on an angle, right? So if you've got let's say Uranus in the first house, right along the IC, right along the 7th house cusp, or on the MC, you would be considered Uranian. Same thing if you have any other planets. Planets on a house on an angle or on a cusp of an angle are generally, pretty significant, and you'll embody some of the traits of that particular planet. So if you have Uranus in the first, there can be some similar characteristics as having like an Aquarius rising. But Uranus in the first house is definitely a placement that it really infuses the personality with uniqueness, independence, and sometimes a little bit of a rebellious streak. It often signifies like an unconventional appearance or lifestyle and a strong desire for personal freedom and an unpredictable life path. So I've known a handful of Uranus in the first house people personally, a lot of them are my friends. I have found that these are people who frequently change their appearance, their job, or their identities in some way quite a bit. And this reflects their need for constant change and individuality, right? And whether that's just with how they're dressing or where they're living, or, kind of every few years making huge changes in regards to like their work identity. That's a pretty common theme that you see. And they could also be kind of erratic, a little jumpy. Sometimes you see that with Uranus in the first house. Now, Uranus in the second house, we're taking, the planet of change and we're putting it into a house that deals with financial matters. So here, finances and values can be unpredictable or unconventional. So there's an innovative approach to earning money, possibly through technology or sudden shifts in income or sources. That's pretty common here. You can see ups and downs with money with this placement, or somebody who is entrepreneurial and very unconventional with the way that they approach buying, spending, and saving. I have also seen, individuals here that make a living through cryptocurrency. It could be through trading or inventing new kinds of business models that disrupt traditional markets. I've seen people with Uranus in the second house that make money also through astrology, or people who just kind of think outside of the box and they're more willing to kind of take risks with their finances. Now, Uranus in the third house obviously is going to add a little bit of like a twist or a curveball when it comes to communication. So very original in terms of how they communicate. I feel like this is a placement for someone who definitely thinks outside of the box. Their relationships with siblings or neighbors might be unusual or strained in some way. And there can be almost like the cadence of their voice can be like all over the place. Like it can be like very like unpredictable. So someone with this placement, they might be known for their quirky social media posts. Maybe they develop new ways of teaching or learning, like through virtual reality. Maybe they like to read science fiction, maybe they know a variety of different languages. Maybe they are a bit of like an erratic driver, or they've got some hot and cold back and forth relationship that they've got going on with like a sibling or a relative. Now, Uranus in the fourth house, this is meaning you're taking the planet of change and you're putting it into the fourth house, which is home life and family dynamics. So this is a house that's traditionally associated with the moon. So this can mean there's something really unconventional or different revolving around the relationship to one of the parents, particularly the mother. But it could also be that they come from a home family dynamic that's non-traditional or subject to sudden changes. There might be a desire for a unique living situation or unconventional relationship with the family. These are people who might move around or be quite nomadic, or people who come from a shock or a surprise in early childhood, like a divorce or a loss of a parent or a major significant change in the home. I find that these individuals are quite intuitive. They can have a bit of a rocky relationship with family. As an example, we could see an individual who would also choose to live in like an eco-friendly off-grid home, right? Or have a family where roles are very fluid or unconventional, where, dad stays home, mom goes to work, or you have some kind of communal living situation where you're living, with a group of friends and you live on a property together, or you're still living at home with family, and then you have your own family and you've got multiple kind of generations living in the home. Pretty common with Uranus in the fourth house. Now, Uranus in the fifth house, we're putting Uranus in a house that deals with children, romance, creativity, speculation, taking chances, your love life, right? So all of these things are expressed in original, sometimes erratic ways. On one hand, there's a love for freedom. On the other hand, there's definitely a love for sudden love affairs and a flair for unique or experimental forms of art. I have seen people who have had a lot of luck with gambling with this placement. I've also seen people who have an unconventional relationship with children where they have kids and their kids are like their friends, or there's surprise pregnancies, or there's unexpected, kind of romance coming in and out of their life. I feel like as an example, I have seen some people with Uranus in the 5th house that have explored being polyamorous. I've also seen people with this placement that create art in kind of a genre that kind of defies traditional categories, something like, like interactive digital art or NFTs, is pretty common with Uranus in the 5th house transits. And this is also a bit of a party animal placement, believe it or not. I feel like Uranus in the 5th house, I've definitely seen that, especially when it comes to kind of casual relationships and stuff. That can be something that you see quite a bit with Uranus in the 5th, or just very eccentric children or unusual children can come through that placement. Now, Uranus in the 6th house, we're putting the curveball in a house that wants routine, right? It wants consistent work. It wants to focus on health and, productivity. So when it comes to these topics, you're approaching it with innovation. And here, health or work can be erratic. There can be sudden changes in employment or health due to Uranus's influence. I have found that this is somebody who may tie astrology to health-related matters. It might be somebody who also has some kind of nervous disorder or nervous tensions. Somebody who would do better working on, almost as like a contractor or freelance. So they have that freedom when it comes to where they're working and how they're working. And as an example, an individual here, they may work in a field like AI or robotics, where the job environment is constantly evolving, or they might have an unconventional approach to diet and exercise. That's another theme that you see with Uranus in the 6th house. Now, Uranus in the 7th house, putting the planet of unexpected change in a house that deals with relationships, commitments, one-on-one partnerships, and marriage. So likely there is something very unconventional or non-traditional about their partners. Partnerships can also be seen as unstable. It can also be about a need for freedom within relationships. Sometimes it means that those are the types of people that you attract. It doesn't necessarily mean that relationships are unstable, but you attract people who are a little bit different and unconventional, or they themselves might have quite a significant Aquarius signature in their own chart. Now, as an example of this, you might have someone who enters into marriage that defies traditional norms, right? Like a long distance relationship, or one with a significant age difference. That can be like the Uranian theme that kind of comes with the 7th house. And sometimes it could be people who don't want to conform to like a long-term legally binding relationship. They want something that is going to be more free when it comes to their commitment. Now, Uranus in the 8th house, we've got the planet of change going through the house of deep transformation, shared resources, and intimacy. These are all themes connected to the 8th house. So as Uranus placed here seems to kind of indicate, there is wild changes or unconventional approaches to these topics. I have found that people with this placement have an interest in esoteric or alternative healing practices. Also anything that can be connected maybe to energy healing. That's something else that's pretty common. Definitely somebody who might be into research, especially as it might kind of connect to investments or technology. I've also seen people here who have had like life after death experiences, kind of shocking, unexpected near-death experiences, pretty common with Uranus here. It could also mean that there's something different or unusual or unconventional about their sexual preferences or what they're attracted to. So that could be something else that you can see. But just as an example with Uranus in the 8th house, like an individual here could be involved in cutting edge research, on life after death, or they might experience sudden inheritances or financial transformations. This is something else that's pretty common. Shocks and surprises with money kind of coming out of the blue sometimes with Uranus in the 8th house. Now, Uranus in the 9th house is placing Uranus in the house that deals with belief systems, higher education, travel. This is a house that is obviously with this planet here going to be influenced by a desire for freedom and innovation. So there can be often an attraction to unconventional philosophies or sudden long journeys, sporadic kind of education where you go through periods where you're very committed and then through periods where you're kind of breaking off or you're moving away from teachers, mentors, gurus, that kind of thing. Uranus in the 8th house in the 9th house as an example, someone might study abroad in an unusual place or create a new philosophy or religion that challenges traditional thought. I've seen people here who also love to celebrate other cultures, other belief systems. They've got friends from a variety of different backgrounds and places. It could also mean that, they have an interest in learning astrology with Uranus being in the 9th house. Now, Uranus in the 10th house is going to be shaking things up when it comes to all matters of career and reputation. So your public image, what you do for work, that's all the 10th house. And with Uranus there, it's very subject to change, okay? So it might mean that there can be unexpected changes when it comes to your career and your reputation. There can be an unconventional career path. Maybe one's path to success here might not follow traditional routes. So as an example, an individual could rise to fame through innovative tech startup, or they might have a career that involves frequent unpredictable shifts. This could be a placement of somebody who is entrepreneurial or self-employed, somebody who chooses to, sometimes make necessary changes and kind of uproot themselves from certain career paths because they're leveling up or because they feel like they have a higher purpose or something they're supposed to be doing to kind of help the collective. They may feel like it's difficult to maintain or hold down a job, but I don't necessarily feel like this is a bad thing because anything that they kind of shake off, it's like opening space and creating room for the next best thing. Obviously, Uranus in the 11th house, very similar to Uranus in Aquarius. The planet does very well in the 11th house because this is where it thrives. It thrives on change, community, shifts in regards to goals and social networks. So here, I feel like Uranus is really able to be as original as possible. It can manage some of the changes or the unpredictable things that can come up a little bit better. There's definitely a strong involvement in groups that aim for some significant change or friends that are going to be influencing them in some way. And I feel like as an example, generally these are people who definitely want to be a part of a movement, And this could be, indicating that they're, focusing on new media or technology to mobilize people. A lot of it depends on the sign that it's in and the aspects that it's making. But I feel like this is someone who generally overall can do well with change. They can embrace change. And they also know that that change comes from who they kind of surround themselves with the most. And then finally, Uranus in the 12th house. Okay, so we've got the 12th house, which is all about spiritual life, the subconscious, what's going on behind the scenes, hidden matters. Believe it or not, some of the chaos is kind of veiled if Uranus is in the 12th house. This is somebody who can have quite a either chaotic or kind of innovative nature, depends on how they use this energy. They may have sudden spiritual awakenings or an unconventional approach to solitude and healing. Maybe they like to kind of deal with their crazy behind closed doors, right? They don't want people to kind of see them as unstable or unpredictable. They may suppress that with Uranus in the 12th house. I have found that these are people who are very much in tune with the collective. They can have precognitive dreams. Sometimes they will have dreams and visions about actual events before it happens. And so that's kind of, I think, one of the cooler placements of Uranus here. The more challenging is that, if this person does not have some kind of spiritual practice or routine or something like meditation or anything like that, then, I feel like it can be really hard for them to adjust to change, and they may resist change, and they will feel change coming before it actually kind of hits in their life or out in the collective. So like I said, an individual here, they benefit from having some kind of spiritual practice or an unusual form maybe of meditation. And this can lead to some really significant life changes and spiritual insights, and it will help them navigate some of those changes that might be kind of coming because they're able to kind of psychically or intuitively pick up on it before it arrives. They may also have an interest in occult sciences, metaphysical practices, things like, tarot, astrology, that kind of stuff with Uranus in the 12th, but they may be very private about some of those interests or some of those groups that they may be a part of if that's something that they study. Well, I hope this was helpful in giving you guys some more insight on the sign of Aquarius during this Aquarius season. Make sure you click the bell button below and subscribe to the channel. This will alert you as to when I have new videos. This is the 11th of 12, so I will catch you guys next month with my Pisces video before we wrap this up. But let me know, do you resonate with any of these Aquarius themes and placements? What do you have in Aquarius or in your 11th house? And tell me about it. I'd love to hear how that has manifested for you. As always, thank you guys so much for your likes, your comments, and your shares. I appreciate it, as any interaction with this channel helps the channel grow. We are getting so close to 40,000 subscribers, so if you guys can help me by subscribing, I would appreciate it. And if you want to see more about my astrology courses or booking a personal reading with me, check out the links below at beyondtheveiledtarot.com. I hope you guys enjoy your Tuesday. I'll catch you guys back here on Thursday. We're going to have February horoscopes up for you very soon. So you have something to look forward to. And until then, I hope you enjoy your week, and I will see all of you guys very soon. Take care.